Namaskar. Welcome to this session. We have commenced discussing the Panchaparva Klesha. Klesha are Vasana. Vasanas which are timeless. So these are the Vasanas of not just previous life and previous lives, but Vasanas are timeless, beginningless. Anadi. Vasanas are Anadi. We have the Vasanas of previous life which show their influence in our present life. So we are aware of Vasanas of previous life which gives us a kind of nature, personality, character for our present life. But these Vasanas are just of previous life or previous lives. But this avidya vasana is the source vasana which has been there from time without beginning. And it is of the nature of, as Patanjali describes as, anitya shuchi dukkha anatmasu nitya shuchi sukha atma khyati avidya. So, taking the impermanent as permanent, taking the impure as pure, taking the sorrow as pleasure, sorrowful as pleasurable, and then taking non self as self. This is how the avidya is from time without beginning. Now, Vyasa explains and how this kind of aviveka, indiscrimination or perversion, perversines is there to all of us, all beings, not only human beings but all beings, all classes of life have avidya. It is not only that mankind has avidya, this kind of avidya that is described, characterized by Patanjali in this sutra, is there in all beings, be that human beings, subhuman beings, superhuman beings, celestial beings. All are infested by avidya. No one is exception. Absolutely no one. So, we saw how the impermanent is considered to be permanent. For us, the mountains and rivers, oceans, planet, sky, the celestial stars, and the celestial bodies are all permanent. Because the sun has been there for all these generations of ours, nearly 4,500 years, a million years, the sun has been there. And it is going to be about another 5,500 billion years. In all, about 10,000 million years is the lifespan of the sun and lifespan of the solar system. And at the most, the solar system will last that much, as long as the sun lasts. And then all these stars, their lifespan extends to some millions of years, but yet there is an end to them. They are all impermanent, relatively permanent, but absolutely impermanent. And that, although it's all impermanent, there are so many permanent things for us. Mountains and rivers and oceans and planets and satellites and stars and nebulas and galaxies are permanent for us because they have such enormous lifespan. So we attribute the permanency in all these impermanent things. What is permanent is the self, Atma, Purusha Tattva. We never refer to Purusha Tattva as permanent thing, and it doesn't really stand out as permanent thing. We all the time refer to impermanent as permanent. Similarly, Vyasa explains about Shuchi, Ashuchi, Aviveka, indiscrimination between what is really Shuchi and Ashuchi, what is really pure and what is impure. So, Vyasa gives an example here. Like celestial damsels are said to be beautiful, that we refer to them as celestial beauties, angels, apsaras. Referring to their body, we refer to their beauty. So when we say something is beautiful, we refer to the body. When we say a damsel or angel or apsara is beautiful, we refer to the body of apsara, body of damsels. Now, the body can never be pure. The body matter can never be pure. We refer to something very beautiful as pure. Because with reference to bodies, Vyasa tells us, Sthanat, Bijat, Upastambha, Nivyanda, Nidhanadapi, Kayam Adhe Shauchatvat, Pandita hi Ashuchi Viduhu. So, any body, human body, or body of any living being, it is materially of dirt matter. Its birthplace is dirt matter. Where does the life take birth? It takes birth in that part of the animate system which is full of dirt and waste and foul matter. So the Utpatti Sthanam, the yoni, the womb, is absolutely dirty, obnoxious. So the birth of that body, which we refer to as a beautiful body, birth of it itself is in womb. The bijam, the seed, the seminal component there, which is a seed for it, that also is absolutely obnoxious and dirty and disgusting. And then this body is made up of annarasa, the food that we eat. The food is muted into our body matters. When the food is eaten, when the food is muted in our embodiment, that becomes our body matter, such as skin, flesh, muscles, bones, etc. So all the body matter is turned out by the food which is really muted within our embodiment. Because the food that we eat rots, that we know. And that's why there is excretion of the grosser dirt of the food. It becomes excretion. And the food is mutilated within our embodiment. And from that we turn out the skin, flesh, muscles, bones, tissues, fibers, blood, etc. So again it is, body is outcome of dirt. And the body is absolutely impure, ashuchi. The body is absolutely impure, but we consider it to be beautiful and even pure. So he describes a damsel's appearance to human romantic mind. And there is quite a romantic description of that damsel's beauty. Um, but as a matter of fact, the whole flesh of beings is said to be apavitram, inauspicious, impure. But then that is which is filled up with the body matter is referred to as beautiful and pure. Then we refer to what is actually dukkha is considered to be sukha. Because all that we considered as pleasure, all that we consider as delight, is in fact the spiritual dimension of it, it is all sorrowful, it is all painful. I recall a wonderful couplet with regards to money, because money is the greatest delight for all of us. We material people, when the money comes to into our accounts, we have great happiness. Money comes to our hands, we have great happiness. Any form of wealth that we get it, our happiness knows no bounds. But as a matter of fact, in materiality, it is our pleasure. It is pleasure for us, but not essentially. Essentially, it is all painful. I recall wonderful couplet which comes in the form of what is called as Subhashita. Aye dukkham yaye dukkham dvigartham kashta samshraya. Money, wealth. Wealth coming is actually incoming of sorrow, essentially. But we don't see any sorrow when the money and wealth comes to us. We see the happiness. So the happiness that we refer to is actually sorrow material and sad material. With regards to money coming is a problem, because then you have to secure it, you have to preserve it, you have to maintain it. You get a lot of tension and worry when you amass wealth. Apart from having a joy, the other side of it is that although we have a joy in receiving wealth and monies, we have some stress and worry and anxiety. We have to secure it, we have to maintain it, we have to preserve it, we have to save it, and it gives a lot of worry, anxiety, tensions. So incoming of it is actually a tension, but we sideline it because the pleasure that we get overscores or overshadows the sorrow which is hidden. But of course, sooner or later we realize that there is a lot of sorrow in the form of worry, tension, anxiety. And money going is, of course, sorrow. When our bank accounts dwindle, when the bank accounts recede, when our savings recede, when our resources recede, that is also sorrow. So, about artham, say money. Coming of money is a dukkham, going of money is also dukkham. And in both the senses, it is kashta samshayaha. It only builds up our kashta, our worries and anxiety. So, what we term as pleasure in our worldly life, mundane life, prapancha, samsara, we are delighted at so many things in our life, in our samsara and in our prapancha. So there are so many things to which we refer as our pleasures and our delights, and we embrace them. But life teaches us lesson more often than less often, that they are nothing but sorrows and heaps of sorrows. The sukham essentially is nothing but atma sukham. Atma sukham is only sukham. Rest all is not sukham. It is all seemingly sukham, seemingly pleasure and delight. Like sugar coated bitter pills, they are sugar coated. So, similarly, the sorrows actually are pleasure coated for us, and therefore we just look at the pleasure of it. There is only one which is essentially Sukham, that is called Atma Sukham in philosophy. Atma Sukham, called in Adhyatma and Paramartha. That is only Sukham, rest all is non-Sukham and virtually a Sukham. Seemingly a Sukha, appearing to be Sukha, appearing to be pleasure, not essentially a pleasure, not essentially happiness. The happiness or Sukha is only one. Atma Vastu is only Sukham. That is what the metaphysics tells us, and the wisdom of the sagacious rishis and munis and sages and saints tell us that is only one which is really Sukha. Rest, it all appears to be Sukha and it is not really Sukha. So we have so many things as Sukha. Getting name, fame, it is Sukha. Getting name, fame, recognition, it is Sukha. Getting name, fame, recognition, money, it is Sukha. Getting name, fame, money, recognition, wealth, it is Sukha. But inquiry tells us, philosophy tells us that it is not Sukha. The Sukha is only one thing, which Paramartha declares as Atma Sukham. Otherwise there is no Sukham anywhere. It is all seeming condition that we have pleasure in our mundanity, pleasure in our prapancha and samsara. Whatever sukha we are getting, it is really not sukha. It is, in fact, really dukkham and dukkham and dukkham. So, we have a lot of indiscrimination. What is really dukkha is taken as sukha and we embrace it, we go after it. We chase it and we acquire it. But ultimately sometimes the wisdom dawns on some fortunate people and they realize, I went after something that was really sorrow. I embraced something that was really fiery and sorrowful. So some people only get this wisdom, but Paramartha tells us so often from top of the voice as to what is really sukha. There is only one where you find sukha, essentially, absolutely. The other things are relatively sukha, or they are perversely taken as sukha. They are seeming pleasure, seeming delight, seeming happiness, or they are deluding happiness. It's a delusion that we see pleasure in all those worldly things and material and mundane things. So it is pleasure in guise, pleasure in disguise. Actually, it is all pain and pain and pain. So this wisdom dawns to few and they pass on this wisdom to us. They amplify the wisdom to us. The saints from time immemorial have been telling us about what is really the sukham, but we are going after something that is dukkham, and then sometimes experience the devastation in our life. But few fortunate people experience that devastation in life, that I went after something as pleasure, which is really essentially not a pleasure but sorrow. So sukha dukkha avivekam. So shuchi ashuchi and sukha dukkha. And then atma anatma. We all have self, but no one really knows the self. Engulfed in the mundanity, mundane mire, enmeshed in mundanity, we fail to really understand what is the self. We wrongly attribute something as ourself, our physical being, our mental being, our psychomental being, or our physical mental being. We attribute that as ourself. Where will you point out yourself? We point out at our embodiment. And that is not really the self. Because this is impermanent. The body comes and body goes. The body has transformations, the body has mutations, body has vikara. And that is not really the self. We all have a self, but we do not know the self. But it is not just we do not know the self, but we wrongly know the self. That which is impermanent, that which has delimitations called upadhis, which has caste, class, creed, race, gender, ethnicity, age. That is referred to as self. While the fact of the matter is that the self doesn't have all that. Is there any chance that we will ever know that we are eternal beings? We are birthless beings, we are deathless beings. None of us knows that. So that which takes birth and that which dies is taken as ourself. That which takes birth and that which dies at some point in time, which goes through various stages of growing and then decaying and aging and then dying. We look at that as ourself. So ourself for us is that which has taken birth and which has been growing and growing for some time, and then which has reached the top of the hill, and then it's slowly going to be heading towards the death by disease and decay, ultimately facing death. So this is what we refer to as ourself. That self comes and self goes, self moves, self has a caste, class, creed, gender, status, stature. It's not that we do not know the self. We perversely know the self. If we were ignorant about the self, that's a different thing, but we are not ignorant about the self. We are wrongly identifying something as self. That is our avatar, our incarnation. That is referred to as our self. While the self essentially is birthless and deathless, immutable, indestructible. That is how the Atma is. But we never refer to that as our self. We attribute the self to that which is ephemeral, which is transforming, changing, going for mutiny, which evolves and devolves, which comes and goes, which moves from place to place, which moves from life to life. That is what we refer to as ourself. That is Atmanatma Avivekam. And the Bhagavad Gita tells us about the Atma in the second chapter, which we have seen often. That Atma is Avyakta, Anadi, Ananta. Atma doesn't have upadhis, etc., etc. Atma cannot be cut, Atma cannot be wetted, Atma cannot dry, Atma cannot move. So the self has been described in the Sankhya Yoga, and we have seen that often, umpteen number of times in the Upanishadic passages and in Bhagavad Gita passages. Avyakto ayam achintyo ayam avikaro ayam uchyate, etc., which comes in second chapter. But we never consider ourselves to be that. That is the avidya. So this is how avidya has been described by Vyasa. So we refer to ourselves as intelligent self or stupid self. I am stupid or I am intelligent. The self is beyond such conditions. There is nothing like being intelligent or being stupid, or being wise or being unwise. It is not Atma which is wise or unwise, or intelligent or stupid, poor or rich, young or old, strong or weak. But we refer to all that to ourselves. So that's the avivekam. That's because of this avidya. So, description of Atma that comes in Upanishads and passages of Bhagavad Gita tells us actually what we really are. But our influence of the avidya is so strong that it is only heard from one ear and it passes out from the other ear. It doesn't get registered. Even if we know, being students of metaphysics, yet our conduct of life sidelines that reality and takes us as Maryadita Purusha, Maryadita Atma, and Upadhigrasta Atma. We look at ourselves as if we are engulfed by the delimitations such as class, caste, creed, race, gender, status, stature, etc., etc. So even if we have metaphysical knowledge that we are eternal beings, that knowledge is just knowledge. Our life is totally under gravity of this upadhigrastata, delimitation. The gravities are so strong that we cannot escape. That is avidya. So avidya has been thus described by Vyasa. Now, one more thing about avidya which Patanjali mentions is avidya kshetram uttaresham. Avidya is the breeding ground of all the other four phases of klesha explained in the terms asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. So avidya kshetram uttaresham. Avidya is the field. Avidya is the breeding ground for other manifestations of kleshas to sprout in the form of asmita, in the form of raga, in the form of dvesha, in the form of abhinivesha. So this is another important characteristic of avidya. That it's not only avidya as a klesha, but it is kshetram uttaresham. It is womb of the other phases of kleshas, namely asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. There is another thing to be noted which Patanjali mentions. And that means it is all avidya generation. Rest of the kleshas is avidya generation. And we have seen on earlier occasion that it is augmentation and escalation, magnification of avidya, which becomes asmita, more magnification of avidya becomes raga, more and more magnification of it becomes dvesha, and more and more and more of it becomes abhinivesha. So, they are all essentially of the nature of avidya, and avidya itself mathematically is raised up. Like avidya square is asmita, asmita square is raga, raga square is dvesha, desha square is abhinivesha. That means avidya raised to 2, avidya raised to 4, avidya raised to 8, avidya raised to 16. That's how it's all avidya and avidya and avidya. So avidya is breeding ground or womb of entire klesha parva. This is another thing that we need to take note of. But then it should be understood that there is a kind of distinction in non-distinction between avidya and the rest of forms of avidya. The basic form of avidya and the swollen form of avidya, there is a difference as well. Although we say essentially it is avidya and avidya and avidya, more and more of avidya, more and more and more of avidya, more and more and more and more of avidya, more and more and more and more and more of avidya. Although that is seen, considered by us, yet there is another distinctive or distinction factor which Patanjali reveals avidya kshetram uttaresham. So the uttara kleshas, the kleshas following avidya, which are given different nomenclatures, but essentially they are avidya. Yet there is a difference between the source avidya and the swollen avidya, the edema over avidya. The difference is that other kleshas have states. So that's what the sutra clearly mentions. Avidya kshetram uttaresham prasupta tanu vichinna udaranam. So asmita raga dvesha abhinivesha have this kind of another distinctive condition which avidya doesn't have. Avidya doesn't become prasupta, tanu, vichinna. It is always udara. It is always manifest. It is always actualized. Whereas the other kleshas have something that can be called as potential state. It is possible. So, the basic avidya and the evolved avidya factorially, there is also distinction that Patanjali makes clear. So asmita raga dvesha abhinivesha in one way stand apart from avidya insofar as this particular dimension is concerned. Avidya, basic avidya, root avidya doesn't have these stages or states, but asmita raga dvesha abhinivesha do have prasupta avastha, tanu avastha, vichinna avastha and udara avastha. So there are 4 states for the rest of the 4 kleshas or rest of the 4 avidya parva. Now this is worth making note of. And avidya doesn't have the stages. What is prasupta? Prasupta means dormant. What is this dormancy? See, when a baby is born, even parents cannot make out what this baby is going to be, how this baby is going to bloom and blossom. But sooner or later, as the baby grows and becomes a child, it starts showing its tendencies. For a just born baby, we do not see any tendency or distinctive tendencies between all just born babies. But when the babies grow, when these babies grow into some months and some years, slowly the distinctions start appearing between one baby and the other babies. This is because as long as they do not manifest, they are dormant. The just born baby has all the tendencies. Now there can be 2 just born kind of babies. One just born baby can be a normal human being like us. Another might be extraordinarily virtuous being, and another one can be extraordinarily vicious being, a Vendal. It is possible. But it will take some time for that baby to really stand out as a Vendal, or stand out as a virtuous person, or stand out as an average human being. So it takes some time. You don't see that in just born child, and you cannot make out, you can't predict what the child can be. Even the parents have no clue as to how this baby would be when it is a grown-up child, and when it reaches adolescence, and when it reaches youth, and when it becomes adult. So there are so many tendencies which are dormant. The tendencies of adolescence are dormant in prior stage. So the tendencies which are dormant for some time, like when the baby is born, it will not be born with mustache, even if it's a male child. But when the male child reaches a particular age of puberty, then we see that the mustache would be appearing. So when the child is 11, 12, 13 years of age, then we see all these things appearing. Until that time, they were in dormancy. So the Uttara Kleshas of the form of Asmita, Raga, Dvesha, Vinivesha are dormant. You don't identify egoistic characteristic in a baby which is just born. But when the baby has grown and when the baby has become young or adult, then we see that this is a very arrogant person, egoistic person. But that is not identified when the baby is, when that person is a baby of couple of months or 1 or 2 years. That means those tendencies remain dormant for some time, and then when they get the manifesting cause appearing, then they start showing. So that's called prasupta. They are dormant for some time. Like sensuality is dormant in a baby. But the same baby, when it is reaching adolescence and when it is young, then we know how the sensuality plays havoc. So until that time, the sensuality was in dormant state. So some tendencies are dormant for some time. So that's called prasupta. The tanu means attenuated state. By adhyatmic practices, by reformation, one reforms oneself. Reforms oneself means the tendencies which are going to spoil the life, conduct of life. We do some management, we do some clipping, or we do some expulsions. We expel some tendencies in our process of reformation, or we weaken certain tendencies in our process of reformation. We weaken them, we enfeeble them, we importunate them. And that is something that is called attenuation. And that is possible if you are a reform-minded person or reformation-minded person. So in process of reformation, you will take measures against certain tendencies. You don't want to encourage them, you want to thwart them. So when you thwart certain tendencies for your reformation, that is something that can be called as attenuated. That is tanuvavastha. Vichinna means alternating. When one tendency is surfacing and has surfaced, opposite tendency doesn't find encouragement. So when you are in fury, when you are furious, angry, the love that is in you is totally eclipsed. You cannot be a lovable person, you cannot be a loving person. When your temperatures have gone up and you are furious and you are in fury, you are angry, you are exasperating, something is suppressed. When you are overcome with some love for someone, your anger is eclipsed. So when you have krodha, the raga is eclipsed. When you have raga, the krodha is eclipsed. When you have infatuation and delusion, attachment, blooming and blossoming and full-fledged, the anger doesn't show. Anger is suppressed. So with a person, when you are angry, you cannot be loving the person. But when you are loving the person, when you are in a romantic mood and loving the person and in love with the person, when the love has manifested, anger will be eclipsed. So there are some tendencies or some characters which alternately come up. If one is surfacing, the opposite will not be there. If the opposite is surfacing, the former will not be there. So they alternate. Sometimes we are angry, sometimes we are lovable, sometimes we are in detest and dislike and hatred, and sometimes we are in love and attachment, etc., affection, etc. So they alternate. So that is called vichinna. And then udara. Udara means actualized, functional. When the love is manifesting, then it is full-fledged love. The other things will be eclipsed. Anger, aversion, etc. will be eclipsed. You will be noble and you will be magnanimous to your beloved one. You will be prepared to give everything. You won't be a stingy person. You will be magnanimous. So, that udara avastha means manifest condition. So when there is sun, the night is gone. So the day is udara avastha. When the night is coming, the day is gone. When the night is actualized, the day is latent. When the day is actualized, the night is latent. So that is called udara avastha. Bloomed and blossomed condition, full-fledged condition. That's udara avastha. So asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha can have these 4 stages. So we'll look into it, but that will be next time. So enough for the time being. Namaskar all of you.